Okay, so quick disclaimer before this video starts. So I'm actually in a hotel room in London right now, which by the way, if you don't know, is a small village in France. And I decided that being in a hotel room at VidCon London isn't really the best place to make a video. So for the next couple of weeks, this channel will actually be hosted by a couple guest video hosts. The first of which is a channel I really enjoy called Eklectic. So Eklectic, please take it away.
The English language is a dumpster fire. Our spelling system is abhorrent, and our words are all over the place. Our language has been impregnated with vocabulary from all across Europe. We're like one big, beautiful mess. We can trace most of this mess to the invasions of Britain. Between the Romans, Angles, Saxons, Jutes, Vikings, and Normans, Britain was invaded by more people than Russia in winter. Arguably, one of the greatest influences on the English language was from Norman French. In fact, French has been so influential that the English language has actually borrowed the same French words more than once at different periods in time. This basically turns English into a time capsule, with old and new French loanwords being used side by side. Let's talk about some of them, shall we? But before we can dive in, let's discuss why French was so influential on English. We can divide this into two main periods. Number 1. Norman rule. William I of Normandy, after squishing a rebellion in his own soil, decided to raise some hell in England, eventually conquering it and establishing Norman rule in 1066. This had thrusted Norman French on England, but where other cultures just plundered and left, the Normans did not. Instead, they settled in, took all the land, and became the ruling class of the Isles. Over time, Norman French, now Anglo-Norman, became highly influential regarding highfalutin words of religion, law, and literature. Eventually, Anglo-Norman French became a language of status and prestige in England, where it continued to add words into the local vocabulary for 300 years, from the 12th to 15th century. La deuxième, domination culturelle française sur l'Europe. Close enough. We have to start somewhere with this, so let's go with Francois I of France. Basically, he said, "Hey everyone! Latin, let's write our laws in French." And in 1539, he signed the Ordinance of Villers-Cotterêts, which did just that, among other things. This new law helped establish what regional dialects of French were actually French, and it also established French as the national language of France. Fun fact, Articles 110 and 111 of this ordinance, which are the specific parts of the document that say, you must write laws clearly and thus they must be written in French, that is the oldest piece of French legislation that is currently in use by the French government. Anyways, back to Frank. At the same time as this whole codifying French law and French thing, he was also a massive patron of the arts, bringing a wealth of culture, literature, and science to France. This brought France and French into prominence, which, of course, bleeds its way into Britain. After all, there's a reason why we call it the Renaissance, instead of that. And as we move forward into the 17th century, France stays a cultural powerhouse. Even after Revolution, Republic, Dictatorship, Collapse, Monarchy, Revolution, Republic, Dictatorship, Capture, and Republic, France was a leading and highly influential force on the continent. Of course, Britain was becoming a leading force everywhere else, but that's beside the point. As you can imagine, with all this contact between France and England/Britain, not only do we get loanwords, but our loanwords can happen more than once, at different times. In linguistics, having two or more words with the same root are called doublets. Let's look at 4 doublets from different points in English and French history, starting with chief and chef. Chief coming from the Old French chief, meaning leader, while chef comes from the modern French chef, still meaning leader. Here the old spelling is maintained in chief, but the meaning has shifted in chef, going from the general leader to the leader of a kitchen. And this shrinking of scope is very common in these doublets. Take for example, castle and chateau. Castle is a true fossil here. These borrowings from Old French and Modern French respectively show how the language has changed phonologically. I just want to point out how the S sound in castle fell out of fashion in around the 1100s, and was eventually written out of the word by replacing it with a circumflex. You can see this in other French borrowings like hôpital, forêt, and côte. I also find it very interesting how similar in meaning these doublets can be, but still manage to be slightly different, like warranty from Anglo-Norman and guarantee, which is heavily influenced by French. They can mean the same thing when used as a noun, but you can only guarantee a warranty, not the other way around. And finally, pocket and pouch. Pocket from Anglo-Norman, meaning pouch, and pouch from Old French poche, for bag. Keep in mind that our word for pocket came from a time when people didn't have modern pockets. The idea of a pocket was basically just a pouch on a belt, which meant that back then you really could drop your pockets. There are a lot more doublets from French in the English language, but I'll leave you with just a taste. Big thanks to KhAnubis for letting me put this up on his channel. This kind of video is a bit different for me, so if you want to see my series where I answer absurd questions with math and science, feel free to check out my channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next Sunday.
Thank you so much, Eklectic, and thank you for watching. If you want to see more from his channel, do be sure to follow the link on screen or in the description to see more. Next week will be another guest video specifically to do with South Africa.